this weekend, the NFL announced that networks would announce upcoming games before the official announcement of the NFL schedule.
Yeah, we're through the looking glass on this stuff now. I mean, it's like they're announcing that they're going to announce that they're going to announce. And, yeah, that's huge news around here.
It's a lot of fun, though, and the schedule's almost here. This is the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben, Frank, and Dave Zangaro. We will have a special schedule release podcast. We're going live on Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. So the schedule gets released at 8. We get a half hour to think about it, and then we come and talk to you guys. And it'll be live. It'll also be wherever you get your podcast normally. So if you don't watch it live, you don't listen to it live, that's okay. You can get it later on. We do know one thing. We know that
it's both live and it's also dead at the same time. Basically.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I like that. That was a good place to make sure the podcast went to a screeching halt.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. We have seen some of the games trickle out from those networks. As we're recording this on Tuesday morning, there are 4 games we know about. We'll talk about the opener in a little bit, but this is something first we want to do that we've been talking about for a while. I think it was a topic on Bird's Huddle last week, but kind of a good way to look back at the offseason Howie Roseman had, and a tough offseason. This is an offseason where we knew they'd have to make some difficult decisions coming off the Super Bowl, but we wanted to look at his best moves from this offseason, at least as we see them now. It's funny because if we did this a year ago, signing Zach Bond probably wouldn't have even made the list. So you never really know.
Bryce Huff would have been near the top.
Exactly. Yeah. So you never really know. But we wanted to go through and give our take. We came up with our top 5 lists independently. So I'm curious to see if we're really similar or if we differ a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll be fairly close.
Okay. Now, do you want to count down, which means we start at 5 and go to 1?
I think that's the Eagle Eye way we usually do things.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start at number 5. What did you put in that position?
I have exercising Jordan Davis's option for 2026. I think that, we kind of figured it was going to happen. There was no reason for it not to happen, but that's an underrated move. He's a good player. He's not an all-pro. He's not a Pro Bowler, but he's a good, solid piece of a very good defense. And he's not a guy you want to lose, especially when the price is relatively sensible. So I think it's an underrated move, and I think it's an important one.
Yeah, look, I didn't have it on my list. I understand why the Eagles did it. I think there is a little bit of projection still involved with Jordan Davis this deep into his career, which isn't great, but also you understand that it's a position that can take a while to develop. A lot of what he does isn't necessarily going to show up on the stat sheet. But, I mean, yeah, I don't want to argue about it too much. I didn't have it on my list, but I could have.
But I also think we started to see growth. I mean, we saw significant growth last year, especially late in the year, postseason. So while it is a projection to some extent, I feel pretty good about the player and where he is. And he's a guy that's willing to put in the work to keep getting better. And I think we started to see that at the end of last year.
Yeah, no, I think there's also the risk that you're overvaluing the playoffs, which sounds silly, but you have years of tape to watch, and you say, oh yeah, these 4 games really these 2 games he had a sack in the championship game and the Super Bowl, which look, it matters more obviously. But I think the Eagles looked at that too. Howie Roseman's talked about it publicly on record that, yeah, look at what he did in the playoffs. We still think he's an ascending player from a pass rush perspective.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This is a little off topic, but I'm really curious what Milton Williams and Josh Sweat's value would have been on the open market compared to what they got if they hadn't had the postseasons that they had. And I don't think there's any way they get anywhere close to it. I just think teams really value that, whether for right or wrong. They put more emphasis on those games than maybe 3 or 4 years of regular season play. It's an interesting question. I don't know how much Josh Sweat or Milton Williams would have gotten without those postseason performances, but I'm pretty confident it would have been a lot less. And I think that applies to Jordan Davis and his postseason too. It's interesting how teams value those games.
Yeah. So I didn't have Jordan Davis's fifth-year option on my list. What I had at number 5 was signing Azeez Ojulari. This is probably their biggest free agent addition. It wasn't, it didn't break the bank. Nothing they did broke the bank this offseason, but somewhat significant. 1 year, $3 million contract. They do kind of expect that to cancel out one of the comp picks that was coming their way. So significant enough that they were willing to lose one of those day 3 comp picks. But I look at Ojulari, and we've seen him a lot because he's been in the division. Probably haven't seen him enough because he's been injured so much, but the upside here is huge. He's a really good player. He's been productive in his career. He's still so young. He's 24 years old. He's already played 4 full seasons in the NFL. So, he'll turn 25 soon.
Not exactly full seasons. He's played 29 games the last 3 years.
Sure.
So that's the question with him. He started 17 games since his rookie year in 2021. So when he's been out there, it's kind of like a Goddard type thing. When he's been out there, he's really good. It's just a matter of keeping him out there. If they could do that, and I think he turns 25 in the next week or two.
In June.
In middle of June. So I'm okay with that at number 5. I think I don't know what to expect from him. We'll see. He could be a big time playmaker. He could be a guy that you just by the middle of the season, you're like, man, what happened to him? So we'll see.
Yeah, it's similar to Goddard too, that he hasn't had like those super significant like season-ending injuries. He plays each year. It's just how much is he going to play? I think he can actually help them. And you're looking like it's been a quiet offseason in terms of acquisitions. He's the one acquisition I think can actually really help them this year.
Yeah, it certainly has a chance. The numbers jump out at you. He's only played 46 games in his career. He's got 22 sacks, 21 tackles for loss, 37 quarterback hits. He's just been a really productive player, over 100 tackles. So how many games you're going to get from him, who knows? But when he's out there, he's a playmaker.
All right, how about number 4?
Number 4, I have Goddard. I have bringing Goddard back for a year.
I have that a little higher on my list.
I had him higher, and then the reason I dropped him to number 4 was because it's almost certainly a 1-year thing. I kind of valued longer term deals that are going to affect the team for more years than this, but I do think it's very important. It's a huge move, especially considering what else they have at the position. Common sense said they were going to find a way to do it. And we've been saying that for months now, that it seemed too doable to not do it. And they got it done. And you give credit to both sides for compromising a little bit, and you have a really good player for another year. I think it's a big move.
Yeah. And so on my list, I have 2 moves that are basically for this year, the Ojulari and Goddard. I had Goddard at 3. Everything else they did this offseason was with long-term goals. And aside from the 1-year deals, they gave a bunch of kind of lottery ticket type free agents. A lot of their best moves this year were for long-term. The Goddard one isn't, but that's okay because this is a team that, so much of what they did this offseason, you're thinking about like 26, 27, this is a move for 25, and they have a chance to win the Super Bowl again. So I understand it. And it was a wise decision to eventually get to.
And what do you have in that spot?
At 4, I have extending Cam Jurgens. And maybe I have it this low just because it always seemed like a foregone conclusion that they were going to do it. It's just Howie's way. But it is what makes the Eagles so good, honestly. It's one of Howie's strengths. It's been one of the strengths of the organization going back to Joe Banner, is that they identify the players they refuse to let leave the building, and they make sure they extend them earlier than they need to. And this is exactly what they did with Jurgens. It's top of the market right now. By the time he enters, a couple years down the road, it won't be anymore, and that's okay. He gets some money up front. He's happy. The team's happy. They lock him down long term. It's like it is the prototypical Howie Roseman Eagles Joe Banner type of move.
Joe's going to appreciate that.
Hey, he deserves credit for that.
He does. He deserves credit for a lot. I mean, Howie learned a lot from Joe in their years together, and credits him. He does credit him. I think the fact that we all knew it was going to happen, to me, doesn't make it less important. It was a move we all knew was coming. They were going to agree. He was going to be here for the long term. I put it ahead of Goddard just because the number of years. It's just a move that it gives him a Pro Bowl offensive lineman for several years. So, with another team, you don't know. Maybe like, oh, they're going to sign Jurgens. Who knows? I don't know. They're going to be able to agree on something. With this team, it's almost a foregone conclusion that a guy like him is going to be here. But that, to me, that doesn't make it any less important.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't. And we're going to talk about the Cowboys in a little bit. I mean, they are the poster child for not doing these deals and getting themselves into a world of trouble. So don't take it for granted either. I think that we probably do, just because they're going to figure it out. It's rare to have any kind of. When's the last contract dispute they had? I mean, I guess Reddick maybe a little bit. Before then, Zach Ertz. Like, it just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and in both those cases, you're talking about older players. I think Reddick was 29 when all that happened. Ertz was probably about the same, I guess.
And they really avoided the Reddick one.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think like the last time a younger, a guy coming off his 4-year rookie deal. I just can't think of one. I mean, it used to happen all the time. And I also think other players see these guys getting these contracts and getting the money up front, getting the money earlier, being able to invest it, and the security it gives them. And they want to be that guy. And they know that they have a chance to with this organization, where a lot of places you don't. And I think that kind of helps keep the pipeline going. Guys just want to be here because they know they're going to get taken care of.
Yeah, if you're a young player and you play out your rookie deal and you don't have a contract yet, guess what? You're not a priority. That's a harsh way to look at it, but that's the reason it doesn't happen, right? It's like Milton Williams. They love Milton. They'd love to have Milton on the team, but he wasn't their top priority. That's why he ends up hitting free agency. If Milton had played at a Jalen Carter level for the first 3 years of his career, they extend him.
Yeah.
And they don't even get into a situation where he's about to hit free agency and gets tempted by hitting the open market. Because once you're that close, you might as well see what the market has in store for you. You're kind of like, if you sign a deal before, like a month before hitting free agency, you're probably tossing a lot of money in the garbage, So the idea, and it's a wise idea for the Eagles, is don't even let a player get tempted to touch free agency. Keep them happy, pay them up front, get that chunk of change in their pocket, and then you keep them long term.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the closer you get to that date, March 4th or whatever it is, I mean, the less your chances are of keeping that guy, and the higher his price is going to keep going up. So get ahead of it like Howie does, and it helps you in so many ways. It helps you with the players. It helps you in the locker room. It helps you with morale. It helps you in the cap. I mean, it's a pipeline, and it's working great.
So to recap, I have Azeez Ojulari at 5, Cam Jurgens at 4, restructuring Dallas Goedert at 3. You have Jordan Davis's 5th year at 5, Dallas Goedert at 4, Cam Jurgens at 3. So I think we're going to have the top 2.
Yeah.
And are they in the same order?
Well, I had drafting Jahad Campbell second.
Okay, so they're in the same order.
Okay.
And look, this is obviously everything else on this list, because he's just by the nature of Campbell being a rookie, it's all projection. So everything else on this list, you at least have something to go on in the NFL. Campbell's purely a projection, but, typically consensus shapes the way we think about the draft. And he was a consensus top 15 pick that they got at 31. So the value is excellent. The player's really great. And he's a linebacker, at least for now, which makes Eagles fans happy.
Yeah, it is a projection. Boy, their track record in recent years in the draft, really, not just the first round, but the first few rounds, is so good that you feel like, look, you never know with draft picks. You really don't, but you feel pretty good about where they are as far as player evaluations. You feel good about what this player can do. You feel good about his tape. You feel good about his character. It's still an inexact science, but I really like the pick, and I can't wait to see this guy in action, whenever that is.
Yeah. And look, we know the reason he was available this deep into the draft wasn't about the player. It was about the medical evaluation. And I think they deserve some benefit of the doubt too. And you look at recent history in the draft, Landon Dickerson early in the second round, a lot of concern. I mean, a lot of injuries in his college career, and he's been a Pro Bowl guard. Nakobe Dean in the third round eventually gets hurt deep into his career, but the season he had in 2024, that makes that a good pick. So they've had some moments where they've nailed it on the medical evaluation in recent years in the draft. So as much as we always give Howie the benefit of the doubt, I think the medical staff deserves some of that too.
Yeah, that's fair. And you feel for these players, because if you're coming off an injury, you're getting poked and prodded by 32 teams or close to it and asked the same questions about your injury. I know they share like MRIs and x-rays and that kind of stuff, but yeah, it's
but then the interpretation of it is
sure.
Yeah.
But you're right. They've got a pretty good track record, and you just see Howie at the draft, just like he's got like an injured guy or guy coming off an injury or guy who's had issues as he's dropping, and Howie's just sitting there waiting, like, when am I going to take him? Just kind of trying to gauge the value and the pick. He's been really good at it.
Yeah, and look, the medical stuff is scary to some extent because there were teams that would not draft Jahad Campbell because they were worried about long-term injuries. And these are doctors, right? They don't have fake doctors working for these teams. They're just different opinions on a player, and that scares you a little bit. But man, if his medicals come out clean long-term, this could be a huge steal.
Yeah, no question about it.
Okay. And then number one,
Dorian Thompson.
I'm assuming you have signing Kylan Granson.
No, I had acquiring Dorian Thompson Robinson as part of the Kenny Pickett trade. Quarterback.
We both have re-signing Zach Bond, 3 years, $51 million. It was, they could have done it during the season, and that's the one where, I know Howie talks about you don't want to disturb the locker room. I don't think anyone would have had too much to say if they extended Zach Bond during the season last year. I think everyone would have understood it, but they waited, they gambled a little bit, and they still made it happen.
Yeah, and it was a little scary because it was not a guarantee he was going to be back. And the thought of losing him after the year he had and what he meant to this team, what he meant to this defense, the way he played. I mean, the thought of losing him, like, we all thought he'd be back. We all thought there was a pretty good chance. He was pretty clear about where he wanted to be and what this organization meant to him, what Vic meant to him. I mean, they were the team that believed in him and figured out what he could do, what he'd be best at. Maybe some other team would have done that, but the Eagles did it. And so it seemed all along like it would happen. But man, when you start having money, big money thrown at you, or the prospect of it, it can be really tempting. So he did take a risk. Howie was going to be steadfast in his approach. I'm just not going to sign anybody. It's a little dangerous, but I'm curious, like, what his confidence level was that he would get this done. Maybe, I'm sure he talked to the agent. Maybe there were some assurances that their thoughts about his value matched up. But it was a little risky. Man, they're so lucky to have him and to get him back for a few more years.
Yeah, that's a good point, because even though there aren't deals being consummated during the last season, doesn't mean that there aren't exploratory talks about what do you think the value might be. And you imagine Zach Bond's agent watching last season going, oh my God, this guy's going to get paid. And Zach had to be doing the same thing. Like, he signed a really minimal deal to come here as a 1-year player. And now he's an all-pro, one of the highest paid linebackers in the league, and he deserves it.
Yeah, what a story. I mean, it's really one of the all-timers. I have nothing to compare it with. And, we've talked about it. I think you made the point a few weeks ago that this is a guy who's still new at this position and has upside and is going to get better. And it might not be reflected in the stats. He might not have as many fumble recoveries or whatever, but um, he's still learning that position. And that's a scary thing. I mean, you think just how good he can be. And I mean, I don't see him as a guy who is going to stand still.
No, definitely not. It's exciting to think about him in year two in Vic's defense because he was already so good in year one. And Cooper DeJean, similarly, those two guys in the middle of this defense, passing off zone coverage, like that is a thing of beauty already. And it's going to become more natural to them as they go along here.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And they got the coach to bring it out of him.
Last in the playoffs, when Bond had the Bill Berge pendant, everyone was like, "There's no way they let this guy walk out the door, right?" And you're like, I don't think so. Like,
yeah,
it was once you get to that level, it's like that was priority number one this offseason.
It was really priority number one, and I don't say it was the only priority, but it was like nothing was close. I mean, yeah, you want to re-sign Jurgens, you want to bring Dallas, but I mean, that was the move that he had to make. And once that was made, it's like it's already a successful offseason. Once he got that done, like you're not going to get everybody you want, you're not going to keep everybody you want, but once that move was made, I felt like it's been a good offseason for Howie, no matter what else happens.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that was kind of the point when free agency actually began and you saw all these teams making moves. Remember what the Eagles did? They had that Zach Bond press conference as free agency kicked off to let everyone know this was our move. This was what we did. I think that was very purposeful.
Oh, there's no question about it. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the schedule. We don't have to get into it too deep. We only know a few of the games so far. And Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m., we will really break down the full schedule on YouTube. But the opener, Eagles-Cowboys, at the link, the Eagles get to raise their Super Bowl banner with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys watching. That in itself is fun, but the Eagles are also 7-point favorites.
Is that right? That's the line already?
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me that they've only played on opening day once since 1975, and that was the pickle juice game in 2000. But man, raising the championship, I mean, just doing that in Jerry's face is, I mean, Jeff Lurie's going to enjoy every moment of that. I mean, it's a great day. No matter, you could have the Jaguars there or anybody, but to do it in front of the Cowboys, your biggest rival, is pretty cool. But I was shocked that they've never opened once in the last 50 years. And they haven't opened with the Cowboys in Philly since 1970 at Franklin Field. And back then, the Cowboys were so much better than the Eagles. It was no contest. Happened 3 times in the 70s, and the Cowboys won them all in lopsided games. 2000 was the only opener they've ever beaten the Cowboys. And one of the wildest days I've ever been a part of covering this team.
Yeah, in a little bit, we're going to do our countdown of the 5 best Eagles games against the Cowboys after the break. But I was a little surprised it's the Cowboys. I think a lot of people were talking about the Lions, perhaps, for that opener. What do you make of a division game to start off the season? Because in recent years, obviously you have a few division games sprinkled in the first couple of months, but I would imagine it'll be a similar thing this year too, but you kind of backload all of those division games in recent years.
Yeah, I mean that's been the MO, and I like it. I like finishing with all the division games. I like the way it works. I was just wondering the last time, you probably looked this up already, the last time they opened with a division team was 2020 at Washington.
Yeah.
And I think the year before they opened with Washington as well, I think. So yeah, it doesn't happen much, especially lately. I kind of like it. I mean, it's a big game. It's like if you win that game, that's pretty huge. And I think Dallas will be better. You would think at that point in the season, Dak's going to be healthy. you would guess. They got Pickens. So
It's one way to ensure that you have Dak versus Jalen, or to try to ensure you have Dak versus Jalen, which we haven't seen a whole lot of.
Yeah, well, we know Jalen's not going to get hurt in the preseason because he won't play. Maybe he'll play a series. Doubt it. But yeah, I think the ratings are going to be insane. It's going to be a fun night, and it's a huge game. 7 points. I guess that makes sense. I mean, I still think the Eagles are significantly better than the Cowboys, but I think the Cowboys. I still think they're the second best team in the division, and I know Washington had a big year.
Really?
I do with Dak. Yeah, I think they'll be fighting Washington for second place in NFC East. I don't want to jinx the Eagles trying to become the first team since 03 and 04 to win back-to-back divisions. Yeah, I think Dallas has a lot of talent, but they've always had a lot of talent and never do anything. So, that Washington quarterback's really, really good. But it's going to be a really fun night, and it's going to be an important game. And I'd rather kind of have those division games at the end, but it's going to be fun.
I remember the opener in 2018, Eagles coming off the Super Bowl. I actually picked the Falcons in that game. And then I remember being on the sideline before the game, watching the Eagles get ready. And I was like, oh, I got this one wrong. There are some moments where you just like watch a team get ready and go, well, they're going to win this game. And sure enough, they did. It was close, but they did win that one.
Was that the 18-12 game?
Yeah.
Do you really think you can tell who's more ready from warm-ups?
There are not most games, no. But there are just some times where, especially when you pick against a team and you walk out there and there was just something about like they're raising the banner and you go, they're not going to lose this game. I picked wrong. Yeah.
And then there's some people that never pick against them, so they don't have to worry about it.
It is tough when they're a good team and you're making these picks because they're not going to go undefeated, or most likely aren't going to go undefeated. So you're trying to find the losses, and sometimes it's tough when a team's really good to figure out where the loss is going to come.
Yeah, I think the last time I picked them to lose last year, for some reason I picked them to lose up at the Meadowlands against the Giants. I just had a hunch. I was wrong, and I didn't pick against them the rest of the year. But
what's funny? So like sometimes when you have a hunch, you have to go with it, though, because the worst possible thing is you go against the hunch and the hunch is right, and then you feel like an idiot.
Yeah, and it just plays with your mind. I mean, it's like the funny thing is, like, you could pick 16 out of 17 games right, and nobody's going to say a word to you. But that one game you pick wrong, you're going to get all kinds of emails and tweets, and if you're still on Twitter, and messages from people like, "Oh, you idiot!" It's like I'm not like saying it's going to happen. It's my prediction.
Yeah, and this year BG is going to have a lot more time to find out who we picked. So.
Yes, he is. He's already looking. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's going to be great. And I was really shocked to see that they've only opened against Dallas once in the last 50 years. That's crazy. So it's going to be a wild night.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Let's take a break. On the other side, we came up with a list of the 5 best Eagles-Cowboys games, and it was really tough to narrow it down.
There's some good ones.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast, presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro. Eagles play the Cowboys in week 1 this year, so we said let's look back and find the 5 best games for the Eagles against the Cowboys in their history of the rivalry. Some honorable mentions here, Reuben, no particular order. These were the ones that just didn't make the cut for us, but they were really close. James Willis, the interception in 1996. The overtime win in Dallas in 2015, the Jordan Matthews walk-off. The 37-9 win in 2017 in Dallas when Carson Wentz was playing at that MVP level. Monday night
touchdowns in that game, maybe.
Monday Night Football in 2004. That's Donovan. That long scramble finds FedEx down the field. T.O.'s return in 2006 comes back as a member of the Cowboys. That's like wrestling heel stuff, really fun. And then Brandon Boykin with the game-sealing interception in 2013. Really tough to leave all those off the list. What do you think was the closest to making it?
I would say probably that Monday night 60-yarder to Fred X. And, that play was pretty high in our 50 greatest plays in Eagles history book. I think it was 11th. Obviously, 4th and 26 was higher. I think it was 4th. And it's funny because I'm sure I've told this story, but when I called Freddie to tell him, I told him 2 of the top 11 plays in Eagles history involved him. He said, just 2?
That sounds about right.
That's like as Freddie Mitchell as you can get. But
was his what about the touchdown catch when he thanked his hands? Did that make a list?
No, that one didn't make it. You can't have 3 Freddie Mitchell plays in the top 50.
But 5.
The 60-yarder, and I was watching that play over and over yesterday. I think we both were. The thing that I didn't realize, and when I was working on the book, I sat down with Donovan in Rich Berg's office at the NovaCare complex, and we watched every play he was involved in. There were a handful. And he scrambles all the way toward the right sideline, if you remember, and then he slips on the one on the field, like the surface where the numbers are painted was a little slicker than the actual field. And you see him, he almost goes down. I don't know if you watched that, but he like loses his balance just for a split second, which just adds to how legendary. And then he runs all the way across to the other side of the field, throws across his body, falling out of bounds. Just a perfect pass to Freddie for 60 yards on national TV. It was, that would be my number 6.
Okay, let's get to number 5. A lot of countdowns today. At number 5, we have the 11-sack game in 1991. Troy Aikman goes down 11 times. The Eagles win 24-0 at Texas Stadium.
Yeah, franchise record still, 11 sacks in a game. I believe Clyde Simmons had 4.5.
Yeah, I have the breakdown. Clyde had 4.5. Jerome Brown had 2.5. Mike Golick had 2. Mike Pitts had 1. And Reggie White had 1.
Imagine you have 11 sacks and Reggie only has 1 of them. And that was, that defense, that's one of the greatest defenses ever. And it's just a shame that team, with all their quarterback injuries, never got to the playoffs. Won 10 games, didn't make it. They were, well, to this day, they allowed the fewest yards per game in a 16-game schedule. And the fewest yards per game, I think it was 221 since like the 75 Steelers. And obviously both teams were coached by Bud Carson, which is amazing. That defense was so much fun to watch. The offense, not so much. But out of all their amazing games, that one was just, they just took it to another level. Troy Aikman had no shot. He still talks about that game. And
after like the 8th sack, he had to be like, get me out of here. I don't want to play this anymore.
He probably felt like that after the 3rd sack because, they had a terrible O-line, and he wasn't the most mobile guy. They just destroyed him.
All right, want to go to number 4?
Yeah.
1995. You'll remember this one. Emmitt Smith, 4th and 1 stop. What a game that was. Eagles win 20-17. Both teams were good at this point, which is kind of rare in the rivalry. It was a playoff race then.
Yeah, and the Cowboys were 9-point favorites in that game, and they were up 17-6 in the 3rd quarter. Eagles tied it. I think Ricky Waters had a touchdown there at the end of the 3rd quarter. So just before the 2-minute warning, the Cowboys had a 4th and 1 on their own 29. So the game's tied at 17. They're on their own 29-yard line, and Barry Switzer decides to go for it. Everybody knew what play was coming. It was going to be load left Emmitt Smith with Moose Johnston lead blocking. So they ran the play. Emmitt goes up the middle. Kurt Gouveia stuffs him. The place is going nuts. The officials run and say no. 2-minute warning hit before the play ran. So the play never happened. So Cowboys were going for it again. They run the exact same play. Barry Switzer from their own 29. And they get stuffed again. I think Bill Romanowski the second time stuffed Emmitt Smith. And that play did count. And, the Cowboys were at the top of their game, Emmitt and Michael Irvin and Aikman at that point. And they just, that was just a sign of Barry Switzer's confidence in Emmitt Smith and that O-line. They had an incredible O-line, and they stopped them. And Eagles ended up, I believe it was Gary Anderson, ended up kicking the field goal a couple plays later to win the game 2017.
42-yarder.
Oh, thank you. It was Gary Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was wild. I still remember Merrill screaming, "They stopped him again!"
Yeah, I think that's one of his most famous calls. People still talk about that one.
Yeah, it was a great one, and so that's number. If that what's that number 4?
4, yeah.
If that's number 4, man, the top 3.
Yeah, it is fun going through these moments because at least the ones I remember, like they're like cornerstones of my memory, like growing up as a football fan. Number 3 happened in 2008.
And by the way, the Cowboys went on to win the Super Bowl that year. So
yeah, details. Number 3, this is one of those scores that it's a score you remember, 44-6.
Yeah, that's all you have to say is 44-6. And that was that game that all that stuff had to happen on the last day of the season. I think they were just for the Eagles to get into the playoffs, and they all started happening.
Yeah, so I have it in front of me. So they needed the Texans to beat the Bears. The Texans were 7-8. The Bears were 9-6. They needed the Raiders 5-10 to beat the Bucks 9-6. Both of those things happened before the Eagles' late afternoon kickoff.
Yeah, and they just crushed Dallas. And you kind of felt like after those two things happened, all right, now all they have to do is beat Dallas. I just remember 2 long fumble recovery returns for touchdowns, one by Chris Clemens and one by Joselio Hansen. I think in the same quarter. They might have both been in the second quarter. 44-6. I mean, that's one of those. You're right. That's one of those scores that it's probably the only 44-6 game they've ever played. I'm sure you have that in front of you as well.
I don't have the scoregami in front of me now.
But yeah, it was that was a miracle. I'll never forget. And gosh, I think what was his name? There was a kid from South Jersey who had an interception against the Bucks. Man, it might have been Jeff Garcia. He might have picked up. It was Rashad Baker from Woodrow Wilson. I'm not going to give you his track stats, but he was a track guy. But yeah, he had the interception that sealed that game. And we're walking over. So back then we did the WIP pregame show in the park across the street, Roosevelt Park. And then we would like walk over or take a golf cart or whatever over to the stadium, and we hear this huge roar, and we're all like checking our phones to see what's going on. And that was when one of those games had ended and the place was going nuts because everybody knew it had to happen. And I mean, the odds that all 3 games turned out the way they turned out were not great. There's a couple upsets in there, but it was a unique day and it was an exciting day. And then they go on and get to the NFC Championship game after barely getting in.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't obviously finish it off there, but that was a heck of a run. That was a fun run there at the end.
It was. I still think it was DPI on Rod Hood, on Kevin Curtis there on the right sideline. It wasn't called, and it probably won't be at this point.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to overturn it. We're going to overturn that 17 years later. 44-6. Is that like, do you think that's the most famous Eagles score aside from the Super Bowls? Everyone knows 41-33 and 40-22, but 44-6 like elicited something in you.
Yeah, that's a great question. That could be another list, like the Eagles scores that you'll never forget. Yeah, that might be it because it's such a lopsided, unique score. I mean, 24-17, I could be any game. So yeah, I think it could be 44-6. But let's get some fans writing in on that one. What scores stand out to them? I'm
sure we'll get some of those. Number 2, we have the Pickle Juice game, the one that was the opener in 2000. You could almost argue it to be number 1. It'd be really tough because of the importance of it. But man, it was an important game, and it more symbolically important than standings wise.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it was really, for me, it was the changing of the guard. That's when the Eagles got good, was that day. It was like the pivotal moment when they put the whole Ray Rhodes, Rich Kotite, all that stuff behind them. They were bad every year. Andy comes in, it's his second year. the Eagles onside kick to open the game. It was 109 degrees, still the hottest game ever. I remember calling the NFL, calling the league office that morning to see if they were thinking about like making the game later in the day when it was cooling off. They're like, no, we're gonna play. And Hugh Douglas got up in the locker room before the game and he started screaming, I don't want to hear one person complain about the heat. It's hot, okay? Nobody complain about it. We're here to do a job, and we're going to do it. And they're the ones that are going to complain about the heat, and we're going to go play football. We're going to kick their ass. And they did. They got the ball on that onside kick, and they just rolled. I think it was 41-14. Is that right?
Yeah.
But that's not a unique score, because I think that was the score of the opener in Tampa in '88. But yeah, so I mean, from then on, the Eagles were have been the better franchise than the Cowboys. Cowboys in 2000, they had won 3 Super Bowls, and they'd been in the playoffs 8 of the last 10 years. They were the class of the division, the class of the NFC, and I still believe that day was the turning point where the Eagles became, and for the last 25 years, they've been the class of the division, and to a great extent, the class of the NFC. And 4 Super Bowls. A couple wins, and Dallas hasn't even gotten to an NFC championship game since the 90s. So, man, Harbaugh had that call because Harbaugh's thinking was they're going to be so like wrapped up in how hot it is when the game starts. They're going to be out there. They're not going to be ready for an onside kick. And they weren't, and they executed it perfectly. And the game was over. I mean, it was, once they got the ball in the onside kick and they just started scoring at will, it was an incredible day, and it was so hot. I remember going outside in Dallas that morning, and like I was going to go for a run at like 6. It was already like 96 degrees out. But yeah, it was an all timer. It was, and Rick Burkholder, the trainer who did the pickle juice, they gave him all the players pickle juice. He said it was keep them hydrated. Years later, he told me, you know what? That was a myth. That was just, if they think it's helping them, it's helping them. He said pickle juice doesn't help you.
I actually think it does, but that's okay. There was a moment in training camp last year where Britton Covey had a little like pickle juice shot. I'm like, what are you drinking? And he said pickle juice. And then we realized he's probably too young to even know about the pickle juice game, and it made all of us feel old.
Yeah, that's fair.
Deuce, by the way, Deuce Staley in that game, 26 carries, 201 yards, and a touchdown. The part I didn't remember, he had 4 for 61 receiving in that game.
Yeah, he had like 260, 2 yards scrimmage. Yeah, and he had that long run to open the game. I guess that was the record until Shady had his 217 against the Lions, and that was the record until Saquon against the Rams. So, yeah, that was the first 200-yard rushing game in Eagles history.
Yeah. Speaking about a 194-yard rushing game, that happened in number 1, the 1980 NFC Championship game. Obviously, the situation put it at number 1 here. I was tempted to fight for Pickle Juice to be number 1, but look, it's tough you beat the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. Wilbert had 26 for 194 and a touchdown. It was 7-7 at halftime. The Eagles won 20-7.
Yeah, people talk about that early Wilbert touchdown. It put him ahead, but then the Cowboys tied it. So Wilbert almost didn't play in that game. He was hurt. He had a foot injury. He wasn't even out on the field when the game began. And then he just came out and said, I'm going to play. And he had that huge game. That remains the only postseason win the Eagles ever had over the Cowboys. And it was I wasn't there, obviously. I remember watching the game. But Wilbur was the whole offense that day, and they didn't do much in the passing game. Jaws, I'm not gonna give your stats out. I wouldn't do that to my post-game show colleague, but it was people who were there say it's the loudest they've ever heard the vet when Wilbert scored to open the game. I believe it.
Yeah, that's number 1.
Has to be number 1.
I think so. As tempting as it is to put Pickle Juice there.
Pickle Juice is more fun. Plus, It's like I was there. I kind of recency bias for a game that was 25 years ago. But
and any game that has like a name like that, has a nickname, is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's true. And there were just so many. I mean, the onside kick and I mean Deuce's performance, and I mean the Eagles hadn't been in the playoffs at that point since what, 96. They hadn't won a playoff game since 95. They were not a good franchise. I mean, they were a mess, and Dallas was. I mean, they had Landry, and I mean so. No, Landry was gone by then, but they. I guess that was Jimmy versus Big Red. It was really a pivotal day in Eagles history.
Want to do some questions?
Yeah, I'm making that number one.
Okay, that's fine. Want to do some questions?
Yeah.
Eagle-eye at NBCUni.com. QR code is on the screen. Before some questions, Rube, we did get some fullback haikus from some readers. Yeah, we have 3 different ones here. First one from Marty. Run by blasting game, and yet more Saquon Barkley. Keep the passing game, or bleep the passing game. I screwed that up. Let me restart that one. I want to give Marty his full shine there. Run by blasting game, and yet more Saquon Barkley. Bleep the passing game.
I like it.
It kind of rhymes too, which haikus you don't have to, but it does.
Yeah, he's combining poetic devices there.
Mm-hmm. Constantine, can you read haikus without counting on your fingers?
I probably can't do that. Yeah.
Okay. From Constantine, fullbacks can make sense. Who'd play if no BVS? Blasting game, I guess. And from Jeremy, he's a linebacker, tight end or fullback now. Ben Van Sumeren.
Okay. Well done.
That's, we're in the weeds when we get fullback haikus in the inbox.
Yeah. My only surprise is we only got 3.
I have a feeling we're going to get more, and let's put a stop to that. We don't need a bunch more. We do have a fullback comment though from Brian. Brian here. Hello guys, big fan of the podcast. Have been a listener for a few years, but an Eagles fan for all my life. Thanks for what you do. My question for you is about Ben Van Sumeren. During your episode, you seem to be considering the fact that the team could go into the regular season with only 2 tight ends. I remember last season there was talk about how good BVS's hands were, and it got me thinking that maybe the team will use him in more than just a fullback in obvious running positions. Think about how the 49ers use Kyle Juszczyk. Maybe BVS can be used in a similar role.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to do that when you have the talent they have on offense. If he's the guy you want to be thrown to.
Yeah, I get that, but maybe like every once in a while type thing, a tendency breaker. I could see that.
Maybe. I don't see it being a big part of the offense, but maybe a few times a year.
And a fun little note here that I found out from Blasting Game when he got into town was that he was in the tight end room.
Right.
So as much as fullbacks get listed with the running backs a lot of times, what they do, it kind of closely mirrors the tight end position more. So they actually spend more time in that room.
Yeah, I think old-time fullbacks were runners, runners, receivers, blockers. I mean, Ben Van Sumeren's not going to get carries. We know that. Yeah,
probably not. Yeah, but and we talked about his hands. I mean, we saw one catch in training camp. So it wasn't like he was out there catching passes every day. It was a heck of a catch.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he has great hands or not.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see more this summer.
It's something we'll be monitoring. I mean, as much as we kind of joke about the fullback position, and it is a fun wrinkle to the offense. It's not going to be like their base. They're not going to live in that, but they're going to use it, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to use a roster spot on Ben Van Sumeren, I would think you're going to use him. Not a lot, but a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
Tom Landry, by the way, retired after the 88 season because I was in the elevator with him after his final game. He used to watch the game upstairs at the end. And the Eagles beat the Cowboys the last day of the 88 season, and they actually clinched the playoff spot when the Jets upset the Giants just after their game ended. on a touchdown pass from Ken O'Brien to Altoon. But we were in the elevator with Tom.
And Tom said, my career was a lot like this elevator, ups and downs.
No, he got out of the elevator and said, "Merry Christmas, guys."
Huh.
And then he retired. Anyway, so I was off by 12 years. So I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, nice man. So
next question is one we got a few times. This one is from Cigar. Hey, guys,
Cigar?
thank you for...
His name's Cigar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not spelled like that, but...
Oh, I see.
Hey guys, thank you for keeping the offseason fun. With Derek Carr retiring, do you think the Saints will try to trade for Tanner McKee since he knows Kellen Moore's playbook and Howie seems to have a good relationship with the Saints? If so, what would the trade look like?
Howie might have a good relationship with the Saints. I'm not sure the Saints are too keen on Howie because he's won just about every move he's made with them. It's an interesting thought. I'm not sure what they're going to do. That really all happened so quickly. I mean, he just all of a sudden we heard about the shoulder injury. Next thing you know, he might not be ready for the start of the season. Then he just retires. And
now there's some whispers out of New Orleans that it's maybe not a real retirement. He just didn't want to be there. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thought. I mean, Howie's not going to give Tanner McKee away. I know that much. So, what do you think it would take to pry him loose?
I think they would have to have a plan unless Kyle McCord wows them and looks like and I don't even think they would go. I think no matter what, they wouldn't go into a season with him as the backup in year one.
No, I would agree with that. I think
so. Trading McKee would be contingent on having another option. Maybe you go back and say, hey, Browns, you don't need 27 quarterbacks. Give us one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like a Pickett, Flacco type, one of the Mariota type guy you get in. But if you could do that, if you knew you could get a veteran in here to be your 2 with McCord as your 3, what would it take for you to trade him to New Orleans? I mean, New Orleans is kind of desperate.
Yeah, we know the range, and they drafted a quarterback who might play early. I mean, the range we're talking. We're talking is it a 2 or is it a 3? I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's anything less than that.
And it's not a 1.
It's definitely not it wouldn't be a 1. It would be a 2 or a 3. I don't think.
I wouldn't do it without a 2. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Now a 3 from the Saints is probably going to be a pretty good 3.
Unless Tanner's really good.
Yeah. I don't know if he's that good.
I would think about a 3. I probably would just do it for 2.
Okay. Yeah. We got a bunch of those questions. And look, if they got offered a 2, I think you'd have to do it and you'd figure it out.
Right.
You try to maybe figure that out before you make that move and make sure you have an option, because look, you don't want to not have a backup this year in a year where you're fighting to win a Super Bowl again. You want to have someone ready to go if Jalen were to miss some time. But a 2 is, that'd be a big steal.
You start thinking about second-round picks: Doc, Shady, Deshaun, Randall, Jalen. The Eagles have done. Eric Allen going in the Hall of Fame this summer. Second-round pick is pretty valuable.
Next one from Dennis. Hi, Dave and Rube. Dennis in Tokyo here. I'm an avid Eagle Eye follower. It's the first Eagles pod I've listened to every time it comes out. I also love your writing on NBC Sports Philadelphia.com. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
My question, to hopefully know how you feel about your work even more, is what's your favorite part of the offseason to cover? Do you like the draft the most, the start of free agency, mini camp and joint practices, the owners' meetings, or other times you can speak to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman? What's your favorite time during the offseason to cover?
It's a great question. You go first. I'm going to think about this.
So I don't really consider training camp a part of the offseason.
True.
To me, that's like a part of the season. If we're including it, then certainly training camp. I love training camp. It's actual football. You get to watch it every day. And I feel like that's the part of I feel like I offer the most value to readers and listeners during training camp than I do during the season. Like during the season, you can watch the games. You can't watch practice every day. So I feel like I'm more valuable there. But if we're not including that, it's probably the draft for me. And this year was tough because we got such a late start after the Super Bowl. It like sneaks up on you. But once I get into draft mode, it's a lot of fun. It's fun to learn about the kids. It's fun to go and watch some tape, even though I don't always know what I'm looking at. I'll admit that. But it's fun to go and watch some of the games and then try to like stack up the players you like. You end up with what I call like draft crushes, guys that you just like the way they play. They're fun to watch. You think they're going to be good players.
Yeah. And I got to comment on what you were just saying about training camp. Seeing Dave in action at training camp is unlike anything I've ever seen. I can't talk to you. I don't approach you. I don't go near you. Dave is so locked in. And, I might walk by him and be like, do you see who's taking 14 reps at left guard? It's like, and you do your observations every day, which are tremendous. A great asset, like you said, for people that don't get to watch camp. Your obs are the next best thing. And then we're doing a pod every day after every practice, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't consider that the off season. For me, it's the draft, but it's more the actual 3 days of the draft than everything leading up to it. I enjoy really meeting the guys and talking to them for the first time. And then they bring them in the building, some of them, and just getting to know them a little bit and seeing what they're all about as people, and just seeing what Howie's thought process is, and just watching Howie in action with trades and who he's picking. I think that those are my favorite 3 days of the off season. The lead up to it gets a little much sometimes. But those 3 days are absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, watching a player get drafted, I think you could cover this. You've covered the NFL for a long time. You could cover for a million years. I don't think that would get old. Like watching a player get drafted. It's always cool.
It is. And, now they have cameras like with every player, and just, their families there. For me, it's more the ones who are at home or at a party somewhere than the ones who are actually at the draft, because they know they're getting drafted. They know they're going to be top 10 picks in most cases. They might be a late round pick. But, the ones like the third, fourth, fifth rounders who don't really know, and they're there with their families waiting for 2-3 days. Those are really cool vignettes, just seeing that all come to life. And I enjoy the phone calls too, seeing, Howie call a guy and, hey, you want to be an Eagle? And he loves that too. He loves making those calls.
Some of those calls are so awkward, but
They are.
but they're still cool. The last year's one with Jalix Hunt was my favorite of all time when he said, "What's up, Big Pimpin'?" And how he looked at, I was like, "What?
What did I just do here?" Yeah. Good
All right.
question.
Yeah, good questions there. Thanks for all those. If you want to send us one, eagle@nbcuni.com. QR code is on the screen. Another reminder, if you made it to the end of this pod, Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m., live Eagle Eye. It'll be on YouTube. And then after we're done, it'll be everywhere you get your pod normally. We're going to break down the full Eagles schedule. Win, loss, 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 win, 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 win. We'll do all that fun stuff, and we'll go through the ebbs and flows of the schedule. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, any final thoughts?
Are we really going to go WWLW? We're going to go through it?
No, probably not.
All right. I do have one final thought. The Eagles Autism Challenge is Saturday morning. It's a wonderful event. Eagles have raised millions and millions of dollars for a really important cause. And I'm going to be doing the 5K Saturday morning. I think it's my fourth Eagles Autism Challenge. I've been training every day. And if anybody feels so compelled to donate in my name, you can go to eaglesautismchallenge.org and just go to donate, and then just search for my name, and you can make a donation there. If it's important to you, certainly don't feel obligated. But it's a really fun event. All the players are out there with there's a bunch of kids activities, and the race ends and the bike rides, they end on the 50-yard line. So you're actually running into the stadium and finishing right in the middle of the field, which is, I mean, I've been going to games there since it opened, but it's still really cool doing that. And it's a nice event for a great cause. And Jeff Lurie will be there, and Nick will be there, and most of the players will be there. So it's not too late to sign up if you want to participate. There's 3 different bike rides. There's a 5K run, a 5K walk, and tons of kids activities, family stuff on the field after the event, during the event. So come on out if you can. And EaglesAutismChallenge.org. Click donate, and then you can search for my name. And looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right, for Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.